Marker. And action.
This is Behind the Bells, the show that takes you behind the magic of your favorite Christmas movies and shows. Within the background of every Santa Claus, reindeer, and stocking is a story. Where did it come from? Our Christmas movie expert will unravel all of that and give you the full story. Sit back and enjoy another episode with Robert Nicholas.
Merry Monday, everyone, and welcome to Behind the Bells. I'm your host, Robert Nicholas, and I'll be taking you on another one-horse open sleigh ride into the world of Christmas movies. Well, I'll be the first to say, Happy January, everybody. And yes, I am aware that I didn't get a chance to get a lot of episodes out in December, but I'm going to make it up to you because I love you all. What a better way to start this year than by talking about one of the biggest holiday movies that got put out, Violent Night.
Are you gonna help us, Santa?
Yeah, Trudy.
Santa?
You're on my nice list.
Santa Claus is coming to town. Time for some season's beatings.
Who the hell are you?
Boss, what if he really is the real?
There's no such thing as Santa.
He's bad, man. They're all my naughty.
Yes, we have got an ass-kicking Santa for you today, but I'm not going at it alone. In fact, from Totally Rad Christmas, I have Gerry on to help me out. How you doing, Gerry?
Hey, how's it going, Robert? I'm really, really awesome and excited to be here to talk about this ridiculously fun, entertaining. I mean, it's not a good movie, but man, it is a great movie. Just so yeah, I'm jazzed. So thanks for having me.
Of course, man. I am more than happy to bring you on because let's face it, this is one of those modern movies that kind of feels like it was definitely inspired by a lot of 80s action movies, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But for those that didn't get a chance to see this, to give you a little rundown on the plot, essentially we have a very wealthy family that gets stormed by a bunch of thieves, as led by John Leguizamo, or as his codename is, Scrooge, who's demanding all this cash from this clearly not so clean family, but at the same time, our very drunken, very not so nice Santa, played by Harbour, happened to be there at the same time, and happens to be stuck there because his reindeer got scared off by gunfire. So, as a way to not only save this family, but to save Christmas in general, Santa's on a mission to take out these guys and hopefully restore the balance of Christmas. Does that seem about right?
That sounds, yeah, exactly right. This is a very disillusioned Santa. It actually, it's funny because this isn't the only thing that came out this year where Santa's kind of losing his belief and his faith in the children of the world. You know, the Santa Clauses touched on that too. But of the two, I much prefer this one just because it was just more fun. And I liked the Santa Clauses. There was a lot of things I didn't like about it. We'll get into that right now, but just overall, I think because this one doesn't take itself so seriously, it's just so much more thrilling and entertaining. And of course, who doesn't love a good 80s action flick? Or 80s style, I should say.
Exactly, because with the wrong director, this movie could have been either way too silly or maybe even a little too seriously, which was kind of where I initially saw Krampus taking itself, which is not to say Krampus is a bad movie. In fact, I really do like Krampus, but part of me had wished that one was a little more self-aware. And I mean, there were hints of that with those evil little gingerbread men, but most of us knew that more could have been done with that. And with something like Violent Night, you kind of get that notion that director Tommy Wirkola, I mean, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name right, really got that whole thing in there, considering that his previous movies have included the Dead Snow movies, and probably the only other one that I've seen of his, Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters, which I'll be honest, I had not seen since that one had come out, but I do at least remember that one a little bit. So clearly,
is that the one with Jeremy Renner?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay, yeah, okay.
So
I do remember that one. So I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is clearly a guy who has a lot of experience with taking these classic stories and putting a bit more of a violent spin on them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and he, it's funny because it's almost like he knew his limits. He knew what he could do and what he couldn't do. And while he swung for the fences, he also knew like the tone that he wanted to set, which is this. It is kind of tonally awkward, It's very action oriented and serious, but at the same time, it's also just fun and lighthearted. Spoiler alert, she makes a whole Home Alone style traps. So there's like all that going on. We get like the little bits of comedy, and it really does play almost like Die Hard meets Home Alone meets Die Hard 2. With a little bit of Bad Santa thrown in.
Yeah, I was actually about to say that combining with the other Christmas movies that were going into it, I mean, clearly it's Die Hard. Clearly there's a lot of Home Alone.
Right.
And there's even a little bit of the Santa Claus in there because we had a guy who started out as a Viking, as we were told in the backstory, who eventually became Santa Claus. And yet, as he said so in the movie, even he doesn't fully understand all the Christmas magic that goes in there. He's just kind of accepted it because he's been on the job for so long.
For, I think he says like 1,100 years or something.
Yep. Somewhere around that.
Yeah.
Which you think that would have given you enough time to really get down all the Christmas magic, but
you only know what you know and you don't know what you don't know. But I actually kind of like that. It adds more to the mystery of it. There's more of a mystique about his character. How does this work? Now, I mean, not even I know. It's something greater than me, which is just the comic book nerd in me loves it. There's like, what are his powers? He has this cool teleportation thing he can kind of do. He seems like he's got super strength and he can go into like a berserker rage, which is awesome. Just all of these little things it really makes the Santa seem just more powerful, and I really enjoyed that. And of course, it's all based on belief, and which is again very similar to the Santa Clauses. As soon as their belief starts to kind of fade, their powers start going a little bit on the fritz.
Yeah, that is true. But considering that a good chunk of the time, even though Dave Harbour or Santa himself doesn't even understand exactly how it worked, because towards the end, when the whole family starts to believe in the magic of Santa and the magic of Christmas, he was able to come out of his, blood-soaked coma that he fell into towards the end.
Right.
Though I will say, too, that along with Die Hard, Santa Claus, Home Alone, and Bad Santa, I'd also argue that the movie has elements of Scrooged, especially from the Night That a Reindeer Died movie with Lee Majors that was being filmed.
I definitely see that as well. The whole what are they called? The skis, jet skis? No.
Yeah. No. The snowmobiles.
Snowmobiles. That's what it's called. Yeah. The whole snowmobile chase is very, all you can just picture Lee Majors riding up on his snowmobile. It's just, I definitely get that vibe as well. I think the whole thing, it's just one of those movies where you don't have to really think and be emotionally invested. You can just enjoy the spectacle and the magic, the movie magic of it all. And but you're right, it definitely draws from a lot of classic. In fact, they're my top Christmas movies. It draws from these Christmas movies: Scrooged, Home Alone. The awkward family dynamic, even a little bit, is kind of mirrored in Christmas Vacation. When they're like sitting at the table and Eddie's just saying all these weird things. And I mean, there's a little bit of that as well. So it's just, I really enjoyed everything about it. And I can't wait to talk more about it. So so stop talking and let you talk.
So anyway, I'll also say too that along with some elements of Christmas Vacation, of course, obviously one of our players in the movie is Beverly D'Angelo as the family matriarch, who, even though we don't see much of her, she still pulls off these performances quite well, considering that we typically don't see her playing more of a rich bitch kind of role that she
right.
does this kind of thing. And that's why I was also saying too that because of that factor, I also got a little bit of the ref feeling in there too with that family dynamic.
Yeah, I get that as well. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, but she pulls that off so well, and it's such an opposite. It's like just a big shift from Ellen Griswold, who's more nurturing and supportive of Clark. And even when he's crazy, she can forgive him. And here she is just like, I don't care about my children. I'm business oriented. And if they don't get this done, then I'll cut their whatever's off. And I mean, it's just, she's just that real cutthroat CEO, hardcore, I'm going to take over the world, almost villain-like, which is kind of a jarring shift to see her in that role. But then we're supposed to feel sympathy for her later on, and we end up feeling sympathy as her character kind of softens a little bit, not a lot, but it's just one of those things that you're like, wow, she really is a fantastic actress.
Yeah, she is, considering that, again, I wasn't expecting that kind of performance from her when I was seeing the first trailers for it. And then once I saw the movie, and I was like, I wonder why we don't see a lot more of her in a lot of movies like this. Though this does lead me into one of the areas of the film that I'm personally not a big fan of, which was, oddly enough, as we were saying, some of the family dynamic, which itself, whenever it cut back to the family, to me it almost took away from the energy that we had with Santa and the terrorists, which I wouldn't necessarily minded had the family been a little more interesting, which is weird because all the elements are right there, because whether it's the main guy's older sister who has that boyfriend actor of hers who's apparently a big hit actor in the Eastern Europe or so.
Morgan, I think is his name. And
right.
Yeah, he's like crazy, full of himself. He's like starred in like a kung fu flick or something, and some sort of action flick, and now he thinks he's an action star. And the whole thing is that the kids basically are sucking up to the mom because she's going to leave them their fortune. And so they're these just rich heiress type, Alva's just this rich heiress that's just kind of the stereotypical things. She drinks a lot. She has terrible children, her son Bertrude, which I thought was funny. Yeah. Because named him after her mom, who is Gertrude, but he's a boy, so Bertrude. I thought that was funny. But yeah, so like he's just one of those obnoxious TikTok, vlogger kind of guys. And, let me see how many views I get, all sorts of things like that. And so she's surrounded with these like awful people. And so I get what you're saying, because those characters in particular were pretty annoying. When it was the son,
Jason?
Jason, yeah, I couldn't think of his name. When it was him and his wife and daughter, I found that dynamic to be a little more intriguing and just refreshing, especially after that. But yeah, it did kind of slow the pacing down a little bit to have them there.
Well, actually, I get what you're saying, considering that even though Jason, played by Alex Hassel, was the one that was trying to hold it all together. Well, given that Jason himself was a bit more nuanced, even though they made it clear that he's not a good guy himself half the time. Right. I kept thinking, too, that maybe had the family dynamic scenes had just gotten one more rewrite with the screenplay just to really punch up the comedy with that aspect and really bring in that Christmas Vacation dynamic, I would have been okay with that. And again, their daughter, Jason and Linda's daughter, who was also the other...
Trudy, I think, right?
Trudy, yeah. Because she was the other, thing that was holding everything together, because she for a while she's the only one communicating with Santa.
Right.
Because we do get her Christmas wish early on, which was for her parents to get back together.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, it turns out they're separated, and this is like his final play to try to win them back, which we find out later on is kind of would screw over his sister and mom. So you're right, he's not a good guy, but you can see in the end there might be the makings of a good guy, if that makes any sense. You know,
like a
there's potential.
Like a redemption arc or so.
Right, yeah, but only a little one, not a lot.
Yeah, it's just that the big problem that I had, at least with Jason and Linda, was that even though at the beginning of the movie, it's clear that the couple is not in a good spot, but by the end, they seem to have gotten back through the one night, and for some reason, once they do make up, part of it that just did not feel earned. And again, whenever we're focused on the relationship, I think because it's only touching upon part of the relationship, and then once we get to the end, they finally get back together. That to me just didn't feel like something that would bring at least the two of them back together. I could see them still forming closer together as a family, because the whole night forced them to really think about how this family was really rich, but then these terrorists come in and we're like, oh, this could be your very last night together. Are you guys ready to die? And they're like, maybe not.
Yeah. It's definitely a speed sort of scenario, where this high pressure situation kind of draws them closer together. It's that's the excitement of it all is really what it is. But it's just I get what you're saying, and I think you're right. I really do. That part was almost like an add-on. Like it wasn't as organic to everything else. But Trudy, you're right. She really kind of held the movie together, and so I appreciated the Trudy, Linda, Jason dynamic as their own little family, and I thought very much that if she hadn't been in that Sergeant Powell and Al role, then I think the movie would have really fallen apart. Definitely,
because let's face it, whenever it does cut away to the family, it does cut to the action scenes. That's where you can tell the director and pretty much everybody else working on it knew that this is going to be the parts that everybody was going to be drawn into.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. That's where they were having fun.
Yeah, because the one other thing I almost forgot to mention, that the one last element, maybe not a Christmas film in general that I would throw in, but at least one that obviously they took a lot of inspiration from, Christmas slashers, stuff like Silent Night, Deadly Night, or Christmas Evil.
Or Christmas Evil, yeah. Yeah, and I enjoyed every bit of it. I was just having just such a great time watching Santa with the sledgehammer just take down this kill squad. And saying that out loud, that's like a sentence I never thought I'd say out loud, but yeah, I mean, he held his own, and you can see he starts believing he's got to save this little girl. It's like this one girl who still really believes in him, and he's starting to believe in himself more and his mission. And he's got that cool little scroll, the nice list.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really well done. That was a cool little thing. Of course, it would make sense he would take his list with him. And we rarely see that, but that was kind of cool how he would just pull it open and it would show the name of the people that were around. So that was a nice little touch there. But yeah, it's just Santa doing his thing, and the choreography that David Harbour probably practiced quite a bit for. It was I thought it was quite superb.
Definitely. I mean, would you say that the whole sequence of Santa taking out the whole army with the sledgehammer was one of your favorite parts of the movie?
Oh, that's definitely, yeah. I think that is my favorite part of the movie. There was a lot of fun parts. I mean, there really was. But as it kind of escalated, I think that was probably my favorite, where he just starts believing in what he can do. He starts remembering his past as he's explaining to Trudy that he was Nicomund the Red, the Viking warrior with his hammer skull crusher. It's, you just picture him like crushing his enemies with that and then making like a blood eagle, with them or something. But it's just, he's doing all these things and kind of, he's apologizing almost too, because she asks like, why did you do those bad things? He's like, well, I wasn't a very nice guy. And it's just, so he has his own kind of redemption and growth as well.
Exactly. And yeah, as fun as that scene is, I don't know if this makes me sick or so, but some of my favorite parts of the movie were actually some of the more specific kills that had happened, like his one fight in the basement with that other henchman that not only caused a Christmas star to get stabbed, but after getting plugged in, it's an electrocution while being stabbed in the eye, which I'll give them an A+ just for that kind of creativity there.
Oh yeah. You don't think about that. I mean, even the Christmas slashers themselves, it's usually, an axe, some shears, whatever else they can find. But not like an actual star topper, a tree topper. So, and then not only the tree topper, but like you said, the whole death by electrocution, after it's been stabbed in his eye. I mean, it's again, not a sentence I thought I'd ever say, but so fun to say.
But of course,
Scrooge's death as well.
Oh yeah, I was about to bring that up next. The famous going up the chimney death, which I honestly can't say I've seen before.
No, that's a new one, and it was really cool to watch. I mean, so this is, I guess we can set it up. This is the end where Santa has chased down Scrooge. They're fighting hand to hand. He's got his sledgehammer, and Scrooge has like a knife and something else. And they're fighting, and he starts to get the best of him because Santa slips on the ice, and as he's about to deliver the killing blow, he uses his Christmas magic to go up this abandoned chimney that was there because they're fighting in like the ruins of an old house. And that was brutal. I mean, the whole audience was just like, oh, you just heard a big oh from everybody and cheering, and which is not something you should cheer for, folks. I mean, we don't condone murder, but if you're going to see it on screen in like a dumb action flick, at least make it interesting. And that one was definitely interesting.
Oh, yes. Because like we were saying earlier, even though we don't see like a ton of a lot of the more magical side of Santa in this story. I mean, obviously we had the list, we had the flying reindeer, and of course we have the going up the chimney aspect.
Right.
So, first of all, I was also going to say that when Santa was checking that little list of his where the names just pop up on who was naughty and who was nice. Yeah,
you're right. So we got some of the magical side of him, but it really wasn't as much. Although I did think that when he was pulling stuff out of his bag, he was like just looking for a baseball bat or anything. And it was like a DVD or was it a video game. So we do kind of see him pull stuff out of his magic sack, which is nice. And that's like a typical Santa thing. But I really, I thought the way that they showed him going up the chimney was also pretty cool.
Right, because it makes me wonder, did that dynamic really start with Santa Claus the movie? Since the David Huddleston Santa 2 also magically went just sort of dissipated into magic sparkles and went up the chimney as well.
I think you're right, yeah. So there's a bit of that in there. There's an homage to Santa Claus the movie as well. Yeah. But
you can clearly tell that that this whole crew did their homework on previous portrayals of Santa in these movies.
Yeah.
Which I do have to ask you though, that given how we usually don't get too many ass-kicking Santas, what would you say are some of your other favorite ass-kicking Santas?
Well, most of them aren't good guys. I mean, there's some. I do like. So of course Billy from Silent Night, Deadly Night is probably up there. That's a good one. I like the Santa from The Night the Reindeer Died, part of Scrooged. He like breaks out the machine gun. He's ready to defend it.
Yeah.
This is one Santa that's not going out the back, or that's a really fun one. Maybe Santa Claus versus conquers the Martians, because the Santa in the Life and Adventures of Santa Claus doesn't really fight in that epic battle at the end. It's like all the immortals. Oh man, that's a tough question thinking back on it.
Well, because I actually do have my own personal favorite ass-kicking Santa that I'm surprised you haven't brought up, but he's also probably one of only two other ass-kicking Santas, because one of the other ones that a lot of people have brought up every now and then, even though he only shows up for one scene, is Father Christmas from Chronicles of Narnia, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Yeah.
I guess because he just hands them weapons, so I guess that's why I didn't associate it with that. But yeah, no, that's a good portrayal, yeah.
And then, of course, the other one, the one that I was going to say is definitely an ass-kicking Santa, is Alec Baldwin's Santa from the Guardians of Childhood.
Oh, yeah. Wow, I completely forgot about that one. Yeah, he plays Nicholas St. North from the Guardians book, which is a great book. If you haven't read the series, you should read the series. But yeah, so you're right. He's a very cool Santa. He fights with swords. He has all that, the wonder, and it's good stuff.
Yeah, of course. The only difference being, while Nicholas St. North was obviously really happy and overjoyed whenever he fought, this Dave Harbour was more or less kind of reluctantly doing a lot of his fighting, considering the spot he was in at the beginning of the movie. Which, of course, we have to talk about the intro, where it immediately shows us Santa Claus right at a British bar.
Yep. He's at a pub and he's having a pint, and there's another Santa next to him, and they're talking about the look on kids' faces, and he has this whole thing about, it only lasts like 2 seconds, and then they want the next present and the next, and so he kind of gets to the point where he depresses the other mall Santa next to him, and so he's like, I'm gonna buy you a drink, because no Santa should be sad on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, but you could definitely tell that was definitely a homage to Bad Santa, since that movie too opened up in a pub,
right?
And oddly, it was also that scene that essentially had one of my favorite quotes from it, and essentially I'm reading it right here. It's when Dave Harbour's Santa goes, "That look, yeah. That look lasts about 2 seconds. As soon as they're finished unwrapping, they want the next present. They want the next cool thing. That's how the world works. And kids, what kids become? They're just little junkies. They're little shits. They just demand. They don't believe. They just want, crave, consume. Maybe this is my last year, the last Christmas," which at least really establishes where this Santa is at this point, and just where he ends up at the end.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's so good. And it's just, and then he goes up to the roof and flies off in his sleigh. And the waitress is like, "Wait a minute, that's the wrong way." Not the waitress, the bartender. And she goes up and sees him flying off. But then every time it shows him flying, he's like either drinking more or he's peeing off the side of the sleigh. Yeah. I mean, just all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, that was actually why one of my other friends, when we went to go see this, he was telling me at the end, it's almost as if Billy Bob Thornton's Bad Santa, well, it really was the real Santa. Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of Bad Santa in it, but then he kind of evolves into maybe Nicholas St. North. I'm not, if you want, where he embraces not only Christmas and his belief again, but also the awe of everything, because he doesn't know how it works, and now he's alive, but he's also, like you said, kind of a badass with his big old hammer now. So yeah, there is definitely a nice growth for him, which I always find fascinating in these these stories where Santa kind of doubts himself and starts disbelieving. They can get old pretty quick. I mean, even Marvel Comics has done it with their Santa. So you start to kind of not really dig it. But on the other hand, I thought this one was done well, because it wasn't just a disillusioned Santa. It was like a raunchy
disillusioned Santa. They put just a little bit enough of a twist on it that I thought it was just really well done.
Yeah, which I like about this kind of story that even though some people may not like the idea of a disillusioned Santa, but as far as I'm concerned, that actually really brings him a lot more humanity rather than just having him consistently happy, going ho, kids, ho.
Yeah.
But as an actual guy that's been on the job for so long, and he starts to question just where does he really fit in this world half the time as he's delivering presents. I mean, again, it was actually something that when I covered in my episode of Santa Claus the movie, that was also one of the first times that I think that tried to portray Santa trying to find his place in the world, even though its screenplay really never allows that much time to dwell into it or so.
Right.
That's just something that I really like. And of course, a few years later, once we had the Santa Claus from Disney, that was another instance of a guy who was very reluctant to take on the role of Santa, but eventually did.
Mm-hmm.
And hence, I think that was at around that point that from the 80s up until now, we've, even though we've seen a progression of the Santa that's really dismayed at what he's doing, again, that just makes it much more relatable half the time, because I think around the holidays, whenever we do have to put on all that hard work, it's like, well, just how much of this work that we put in really carries over the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we feel it ourselves, and I think that's why this Santa kind of hit a little bit too, because you and I, we love Christmas. All those Christmas podcasters love Christmas, but you do it all year long, and sometimes a little bit of the magic can slip away, and so all it takes is like my kids. They start getting so excited that it's coming, and all of a sudden it's like, there it is. Now I feel it. So I could relate to this Santa as well. Christmas is like, I work at a Christmas store. I listen to Christmas music. It's one of those where like, I'm editing the show, I'm doing all these episodes, I'm like in Christmas mode, that it can seem like the magic, the veneer can be, just kind of faded a little bit, but it really is like just the children that kind of put it back and just rejuvenate us and revitalize that spirit. And so I really could relate to this David Harbour Santa, which, by the way, his Santa also has bits of Jim Hopper in it from Stranger Things. He is doing kind of a Hopper
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Which that definitely had to be intentional on the writers once they casted him as Santa.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, they had to do it.
Which does lead me to another fun question. Given how we both kept saying that this definitely feels like a slight tribute to a lot of those 80s style action movies.
Uh-huh.
Now, had this movie been in the 80s, who would be playing Santa?
Oh, that's a good one. You know what? I'm going to go with John Carpenter's choice from Santa Claus the movie, and I'm going to go with Brian Dennehy. I think he would have been a good grumpy Santa.
Not bad. Yeah, I could definitely see that too. Especially, it's funny because even though most people don't count Rambo as a Christmas film, but you kind of see the kind of grumpy guy that he does play as the town sheriff in that movie.
Right.
It really makes you curious on had he gotten the chance to ever play Santa Claus, whether he would have played that much more straight-laced, or if they would have let him bring in that grumpy disposition.
David Huddleston for me is like one of, if not the best on-screen Santas. But at the same time, I'm super curious. I think Brian Dennehy would have done just a phenomenal job because he's just a phenomenal actor. I don't know if Santa is like the right role for him, like you were suggesting, but I really think just based on some of his other work, like in Cocoon or in FX, I could see him being still hard-edged, but not quite as, just a little more jolly, a little more of a twinkle in his eye. But I don't think the bottom line is he wouldn't be David Huddleston. And so But I still really wanted to see. I mean, I can't now, but I really would have liked to have seen that John Carpenter, Brian Dennehy version. I think that would have been just an awesome movie in the 80s, especially.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been awesome. Had the Salkins not the control freaks and essentially had demanded the movie that they wanted. And I mean, even though to me, Santa Claus the movie still remains a fun cult classic in that aspect, and they did give us, as you said, one of the best portrayals of Santa on screen.
Yep. Yeah, and again, I love that movie. It's one of my favorites, but it is almost like a Frankenstein of a movie. There's like really two movies that they just kind of mashed together into that. Whereas Violent Night, especially, it's, you don't get a lot of that. You get little elements here and there of different movies, but they really coalesce into one just movie that fits a lot better together than Santa Claus the movie does.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely tell the director here was definitely given a lot of creative freedom with his writers to essentially make the Christmas movie that he wanted. And in fact, given how the movie even ends with maybe not necessarily a stinger for a sequel, but at least potential for a sequel, here's my other question I got to ask you. If they do make a Violent Night 2, who should they cast as Mrs. Claus?
Well, so I know that David Harbour wanted to see Charlize Theron, I don't know how you say her name, Charlize Theron, as Mrs. Claus. I think that's a great choice. I think it would have to be someone that could really bring the physicality to the role, but also be believable as an 1,100-year-old woman. I mean, she doesn't have to have the physique, or she doesn't have to have the makeup or anything, but I would like to see, I think, Helen Mirren.
Actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because she is actually playing an ass-kicking villain later this year in Shazam! Fury of the Gods.
Right. I think she could do it. I think she'd do a good job. Or Connie Nielsen is another one. And again, I'm picking another DC heroine, but I think she'd be a phenomenal Mrs. Claus as well.
Which I can see that too. Now, personally for me, if I got to be the one to cast a Mrs. Claus, well, given in my mind that I always pictured Mrs. Claus, or at least an ass-kicking Mrs. Claus, to be kind of a redhead, I probably would have first gone for Jessica Chastain.
Okay, I could see that.
I mean, she's got the physicality, and even though she's obviously younger than Dave Harbour, I could just really see her as as Mrs. Claus, because initially I would have said Sigourney Weaver had she been a lot younger. But otherwise, if not her, another older actress I would have considered, even though she is definitely a little older than Dave Harbour, would have been Angela Bassett.
Oh, that's a good one too. That's a cool choice. Yeah. And she's got that physicality, so that would be good. No, but it was nice to see some of his powers. And yes, I loved the special effects they used. It did take me back to the early days of not cinema, but of special effects and ILM type stuff, and with a little bit of Star Trek in there. Like you said, it was those kind of magic sparkles that were so prevalent because they were hand drawn and things like that in the 80s, and various light effects. And so of course, here they use computers to do it all, but it really did remind me of that, and I think that's why the movie felt so nostalgic to me. Like there's that, plus the plot. The back and forth when he's got the walkie-talkie and he's just talking to the little girl, just like John and Al are talking. It's all these little elements that we've been talking about that just make it so warm and comforting and remind me of some of those movies from my childhood.
Yeah, definitely. Though,
I got a question though.
Oh yeah.
So you were talking about who would play Santa if it were in the 80s. What about Scrooge? Who would play the villain?
Honestly, the only guy that I could see that has to be our own Hans Gruber, Alan Rickman.
Nice, yeah. He would have done a phenomenal job, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, let's see. I oh gosh, what's his name? Richard Lynch. I would have liked to see Richard Lynch play him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This other one hit my head that I definitely want to get out.
Okay.
I also think Joseph Pilato or Plato, who played Rhodes in The Day of the Dead, I think he could have played a good Scrooge too.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can see that definitely. There's like so many different possibilities. It's just fun to think about.
Oh, but speaking of 80s movies, here's another fun question I got to ask. Okay, let's say this Dave Harbour Santa could cross over into another Christmas movie. What other Christmas movie would you like to see his Santa go into?
Ooh, that is a good question. I mean, I feel like the obvious answer, and it's technically not 80s, it's 1990, but there's no year zero, so a decade is technically from like 81 to 90. So the obvious answer would be Home Alone, but I think it would be more interesting for him to be in probably A Christmas Story. I'd like to see him be in A Christmas Story as the Santa that they go see.
That almost feels like a side movie itself. Where
that's right, yeah.
maybe the movie could open up with him seeing Ralphie and his younger brother, and then the rest of it is just all from Dave Harbour's perspective, where that Santa goes after Higbee's closes.
Like that, like A Christmas Story adjacent. I think that'd be fun. Or of course, I would have loved to see him in the opening montage of Scrooged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually surprised a lot of people have not brought up this idea, but honestly, I kind of want to toss this Dave Harbour Santa into the movie that inspired it, Die Hard.
Oh, that would be fun. Yeah.
Just a different scenario where his sleigh would end up on top of the Nakatomi building, and he just ends up joining John McClane on this whole adventure.
Oh, man. I mean, already Alan Rickman's guys barely stood a chance, and now, I mean, that's it. And it would be fun, though. It would be fun to see this Santa, David Harbour Santa, up against Krampus, or some sort of magical villain as well.
Like maybe Belschnickel or so?
Or yeah, I'd take that as well. Just, something different, because he can take on the bad guys now. And I know that they want to make a bunch of sequels that go crazy and crazy and crazier. At least that's what they've kind of said. As long as they're still good movies, and so I wouldn't mind seeing that. I think that'd be fun. Some sort of more magical setting.
Yeah. Do you think the second one should also reveal the North Pole, or should they still keep that kind of ambiguous?
I kind of feel like it could be, like it should be a little more ambiguous, but we can see maybe just like a room or two, like maybe Santa's bedroom with Mrs. Claus, and then, maybe the launch pad as they're going out, and she joins him this time or something, but I wouldn't want to see all of it yet. I think that's like one of the big mistakes that Christmas Chronicles 2 made, was that it revealed too much. And there wasn't quite enough mystery left in it.
Right, yeah. And as a lot of people have pointed out, they most really didn't care for the portrayal of Belschnickel in that one.
Yeah. And I'm Hispanic, so like that's not a thing in our heritage. I didn't even know who Belschnickel was till the Christmas Chronicles 2. So I didn't mind it, but I know that a lot of people, that it really is a part of their culture and their heritage, and they grew up with his lore, and so they were pretty upset. But for me, I was like, oh, cool, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't my favorite. I think he could have been a much better character.
Right, and again, I don't know if it was because of the change of directors to Chris Columbus or somebody from Netflix saying we got to get that Fire Fist kid from Deadpool 2 as a villain somehow.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I mean, I honestly don't know if they'll continue those Christmas Chronicle movies, but I see a lot of potential continuing on with the Violent Night series. especially as you just said, if they were to include Krampus into the story.
Oh yeah. I mean, if they go more mystical, or even if they don't, I mean, there's a lot of ways you can really go, all out with this. I mean, can you imagine, like, Olympus has fallen, but instead of Gerard Butler, it's Santa? I mean, that would be fun. So I mean, there's like, you can really do. So that's like if you wanted to go more grounded. I would love to see all these different Santas together in a movie.
Yeah,
and I hope someone edits like a big, super cut of like the, quote unquote Yule verse, except with all the Santas.
Okay, now I just kind of want to see a redo of that whole portal sequence from Avengers Endgame, but replace him with all the Santas.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that would be so much fun. And then, he's got his skull crusher and he's walking through, and then, that would just be so fun. I'd love to see that. So you heard it, guys. Go, someone that's really good at that, get on it.
Though, I was going to say, too, that one other holiday character I would be very fascinated to see how they would portray in this version would have been Frosty the Snowman.
Well, and it's funny because like the villains, they use like these nicknames, to hide their real names. And so we get Frosty, we get Krampus, there's Gingerbread, there's Candy Cane, there's Scrooge. So Frosty, obviously, a lot of the Christmas stories do exist in that universe, and so it would be. I mean, of course, Santa Claus is real, so he shows up. But I would like to see Frosty as well, or Rudolph.
Yeah, especially with Rudolph. Even though, I mean, I know I covered this in my episode with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, But one of the reasons that we hardly see Rudolph in a lot of other lineups is that, unlike the other reindeer, Rudolph is a copyrighted character.
Yep. It's all the rights issue. So,
yeah, but it's unfortunate, but I just find it funny that one of Santa's reindeer legally cannot be used because he's a copyrighted character.
Well, change it to Randolph.
Because now
or just don't say his name, just you never name him. You only obliquely mention, I don't know.
Because now you got me thinking of that part from Austin Powers where one guy's like, it's Godzilla. Stop. It looks like Godzilla, but due to international copyright law, it is not.
Yep. or like The Simpsons, you have The Shining. You mean The Shining? Hush, lad, you want to get sued?
Oh, man.
I love Groundskeeper Willie.
Yeah, he's a fantastic guy.
Oh, yeah.
Well, first of all, when you did see this, I'm assuming you saw this in a movie theater?
I did, yeah. I did. So it was on one of my days off because during the season, I only get one day off a week. And so most of the time I'm doing lots of chores, trying to just relax because it's my only day off. And I'm also trying to get Christmas shopping and stuff done. But that particular day, I think it had been out. It was a Monday. It came out on Friday. So that Monday, I just decided I got to go see this because I'm tired of not having seen it. So I saw it. And yeah, I mean, it was a Monday, but there were people there and it was awesome. Everybody was into it.
Well, good, because I ironically also had to wait a few weeks before I could see this, because along with some other Christmas activities that I had going on, I just could not get her, even though I badly wanted to get to the movie on its opening weekend so I can see a big group of people. Right. I couldn't, so it was about 2 weeks later on Saturday afterwards that a buddy of mine went to go catch it. And of course, part of the problem was that the theater itself was packed because of all those Avatar screenings that were going on.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So, and after a stupidly long wait just to get some popcorn, I was surprised to see that our theater was still pretty packed, which I assume it was because it was full of people that couldn't get tickets to Avatar, so they were settling for something else at the moment.
Probably. Yeah. That checks out. Yeah. That scans.
Though I will note too that when I did see Violent Night, even though I was happy to see a fully crowded theater, I was surprised to see that there were a lot of parents that brought their kids to this movie.
Oh man, that's like a big, that's gonna be a no for me, dog. I mean, I can't do that. I mean, that's like I knew from the trailer that was a bad idea, but I guess some folks don't mind taking their kids to see that, but can you believe that there's like some intense, gruesome, graphic deaths. So I mean, that just seems crazy to me, but hey, go for it.
Otherwise, I kept thinking, man, if I had children, I would not be bringing them to Violent Night, or at least in a movie theater type thing.
Right. And it is funny how like we grew up watching that stuff, and then it's like, no, I'm not taking my kids to see that. I mean, that's, I shouldn't even have seen that stuff. Why did why am I going to take them? But it is funny that it's like, yeah, of course I watched Predator. I mean, that's what you did, but no.
Yeah, but then again, my older cousin, who used to manage a movie theater for a long time, we were both talking about Violent Night the other day, and how as soon as I brought up that there were kids in the theater, he didn't come out that surprised, because he was telling me about how when Bad Santa came out, even though they had to put up all these flyers that warned parents that Bad Santa was not a movie for children, that didn't stop a lot of parents from bringing their kids in, only to be covering their kids' ears and walking them out of the theater after 5 minutes.
Jeez. Yeah, I mean, they say a lot of things, and they show some things that kids shouldn't be seeing there. And same thing here. I mean, Santa takes a guy up the chimney and basically mutilates him doing so. So it's not for the squeamish.
Exactly. In fact, at my screening, at least 4 people walked out because they were appalled by what was going on. Even though I thought, did you not see the previews? Did you not see the name of the movie, Violent Night? Did you not think this was going to be a very happy G-rated romp about Santa Claus?
They're like, oh, it'll be PG. No big deal. I guess. I don't know, but. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty obvious from the trailers. It's from the clips that were released, from the name, and even the image of David Harbour. He's got like the Santa, but it's kind of grayish, and there's blood stains in there. I mean, I think if you were paying any kind of attention, I think you'd know what this movie was kind of the tone that it was going for. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Because even though the future dad of me isn't sure I'd want to show this in front of my kids, but the other part of me does kind of want to at least partially be the cool dad. And yeah, I know what you mean.
And I'm right now trying to figure out what would you say would be like maybe the right age to be that cool dad and bring your kids to this.
I think it depends, because my kids right now take after more of like their mom, so they're not quite as into the actiony, more gruesome kind of thing. Like my wife's a big weenie, and my kids are kind of leaning that way pretty heavily. So like my oldest is 10, and I'm watching like Clash of the Titans with her, the original, and we watched Percy Jackson, and we're watching the Harry Potter movies, but that's still, you can tell there's some measure of fantasy to all that. Whereas this one, it is almost a very grounded type movie. So there's a lot more just gory stuff that could happen. And I think that would kind of scare a child more than like seeing the Kraken done in that Harryhausen style. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
I probably wouldn't unless they were like 12 or 13 myself.
But otherwise,
if like they had taken after me a little bit more in their tastes, then at 10 I might actually take her. But I wouldn't do less than that, I think.
Because I think for me the ultimate test would be like if I had kids that were at a certain age, I would first probably see how they would get through Gremlins all right. And if they weren't fazed by that, then I think I'd probably take it up to the next step at that point.
Right, exactly. Yeah, like start off with that where, those little creatures running around, they're kind of terrifying. And So I think that would be a good test there.
Yeah, which, oh, by the way, now I have to bring this up.
Okay.
Gremlins is another movie I would definitely toss Safe Harbor
Yes.
Santa into.
Yes. Can you imagine him fighting off the gremlins? Just swinging his hammer around, just batting gremlins around.
or even just flying his sleigh in the air and he having to balance out his sleigh and flying the reindeer while the gremlins are like attached trying to climb aboard it or so.
Yeah, that'd be so much fun, and just you're naughty, and just
Naughty. You're naughty. And you're naughty.
Or what's the what is it? Punish from Silent Night, Deadly Night.
I will admit though that if they do end up doing a sequel, I really hope at some point they work in. I don't know how they're going to work in this line, but I badly want to see a reference to the famous Garbage Day line
from part 2. Yeah, that'd be pretty fun to see. I did there was a lot of cool things here. So, when he's pulling, we talked about him pulling the DVD, the video games, and he pulls out the bat and then he just starts, wailing on the guy with the bat. But I liked how he has the candy cane later on and he kind of makes like a little shiv with it. It's like one of those giant candy canes. And he just starts, dispatching the kill squad with that little makeshift shiv. I thought that was a fun touch.
Which I will admit that even as a little kid, I knew that if you sucked on the candy cane long enough, you actually could make it sharp.
Yeah. I mean, we all did it, right? I mean, so it's like, oh wow, that's a deadly weapon, and of course, it's like one of those bigger, thicker candy canes, and so he's able to make it not quite as brittle. And that was a fun scene. He's just going through them, and the guy outside, he's like, the comms guy, he's just seeing their cameras go down one by one, like, what's going on? And then when Santa finally comes out, he just turns and runs. And then Santa just like launches his sledgehammer at him. I mean, that's just funny.
Though, I mean, given how the film obviously had a lot of great moments and some slower parts, but obviously it's a movie that knows exactly wants to be something more of a, I want to say, a exploitation type violent Christmas movie.
Yeah, totally.
Well, do you think this has the makings to just be a Christmas cult classic, or do you think it has the possibility to become a Christmas classic?
No, I think it's probably going to be more in the cult classic genre. I think there's going to be a few people that really latch onto it, and it'll be something of a mainstay for them. But as an audience overall, I don't think it's going to hit that classic level. It's just most people don't want to see murderous things going on at Christmas time. Most people just want the fun and jolly and the Hallmark and the, maybe a little bit of zany here and there with Christmas Vacation. But I think it's a little too violent for the overall crowd. However, having said that, you see the trend now of like Die Hard being more and more of a Christmas movie, people thinking about Lethal Weapon as a Christmas movie. And so I could definitely see it eventually becoming like a classic, but I don't see that in the near future.
But I also assume you don't expect people to start debating, is Violent Night a Christmas movie?
Oh no, definitely not. I mean, no, this is a Christmas movie. It stars Santa. It's about Santa. So yeah, there's that. But
right.
This was like my favorite, and I know we're wrapping up here, but I got to say, this was like my favorite new thing that came out. Spirited, I thought was way overrated. I still can't believe that Tis a Podcast guys ranked it so high. It's not that good.
Which I get that too, because at some point I may want to cover that one where I sort of examine why some people saw that one so highly while others like myself are like, hey, I mean, it's fine, but I'm not really seeing why this is suddenly like the next big thing. Yeah.
I'd give it like a 6, maybe. Like I'm being generous. But I know what you mean. Like it was too long. First of all, there was no chemistry between like the love interests. It kind of, at least for me, I didn't like how it changed Scrooge's, his future, where he only lived 3 weeks afterwards, where like the book clearly says that he was a mentor to Tiny Tim. He grew to really love. Everybody said he loved Christmas. How could they do that if he only lasted 3 weeks? I mean, it's just one of those like, oh, come on. And then just some of the weird choices they made with, and of course musicals. And I'm not a musical guy, so to me, I was like, oh, this would have been better without the songs. And then they weren't even catchy, so there was that. But this, I liked it better than that. I liked it better than the Santa Clauses, even though I did really enjoy the Guardians holiday special. Like that was one of my favorites as well this year. But I think I'd like this one a little bit more, only because I think they focused a little too much on Mantis's character. And I like Mantis, but the particular speech affectation that Palm Clementif uses for Mantis' character just kind of annoys me a little bit. So I don't know. All that together, I really think that this was just the best Christmas one to come out this year. And again, not that it's a good film or anything, but it's just so much more enthralling and fun.
Exactly, because even when you combine a lot of the other streaming options or so, there weren't really a ton of new Christmas options last year. Because I will say though that again, Spirited, I'm definitely on board with you. That I didn't think it was as good as others said. The Santa Clauses, I think I like that one just a little more than you did. Even though I do know that there are faults with that, but I am curious to see what they're going to at least do with the next season.
Yeah.
And because the only other major, aside from the other like Netflix Hallmark type stuff, which I'm usually not into at all, which I skipped. The only other major Christmas movie that I did end up catching was A Christmas Mystery on HBO Max.
Oh, I still have to see that one. I haven't seen it yet, so I've heard it's good. I know Jeff from Lost Christmas really liked it, and I've been meaning to catch it, and I haven't been able to yet. So I'm hoping on my next day off next week, I'll be able to just sit down and watch that through.
Yeah, and of course, before everything else, I should also bring up too that in a way I was kind of jealous on Violent Night, because back when I was in high school, I actually did write my own spec story about Santa going on a violent rampage to save Christmas.
Nice.
Except
it's just a fun concept,
With something like Violent Night, what grade would you give this movie overall?
That's tough. I think if I'm comparing it with just what came out this year, I'd give it an A. Overall, comparing it to other Christmas movies, including the classics, it's probably more of like a B-.
Okay, because I'm probably a little more generous, giving it a B+. Given how when I was because at least when I went to the theater, I remember really walking out of that one with, if not like a big smile, but at least just a giddy feeling, knowing that it was awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if it didn't stick with me the same as it did yesterday, I thought, you know what? Yeah, I was pretty happy with what I saw, even though I know there's more they can do with it.
Right.
So we'll have to see if the sequel itself can, if not deliver something better, at least something as entertaining as the first one was.
Right. Yeah. And that's really what it is. Because like I said, you think about it, and it's not everyone's cup of tea, but it's not really like what you would consider a Christmas classic or even a good film. But it's just so much, there's just so much that makes you smile that, it really does just kind of, like you said, you walk out of that theater going, I really enjoyed the heck out of that. Like that was just so much fun, and it went where I wanted it to go, and it went in a couple of places that I wasn't expecting, and I was surprised, and it just, it really was a fulfilling theater viewing experience. So, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and of course, before I wrap things up too, the other note I will say was that the part of the movie that was kind of a tribute to Home Alone, I thought, wow, this is actually a better Home Alone sequel than the actual Home Alone sequel that came out last year.
Oh yeah, they went for it. I like how he's he's looking at the obvious trap, the nail in the stairs. He's like, the thing about traps is that you got to make them invisible. Like you can't be in plain sight like this girl. And then turns out she had sawed the rung. and he falls, and then the nail just goes like right through his lower jaw. Like, wow. Like that was very intelligent on her part. She did some hardcore planning. I mean, the lady, what's her name, Candy K, falls back, and with that glue on the back of her head, it pretty much like scalps her. I mean, it was ridiculous what this little girl did, and but I like how it was much more realistic. Everybody talks about, well, the burglars from Home Alone, they'd be like a million times dead if those things happened to them. Well, yeah. So now we see it. It's true.
And that's where I started to debate whether the scene took its inspiration from Home Alone or possibly from that other French movie that's kind of like that, Dial Code Santa.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe both. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't put it outside the movie makers to have taken in some inspiration from that too.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, and then she's so like excited. I did it just like in Home Alone. It's just so funny that she's so excited about her traps working, not realizing that they she just basically killed these two terrorists and thieves. It's just that juxtaposition of comedy and macabre, morbidity, I guess, is just it really worked, I think, to the film's benefit.
All right, yeah. Yeah, so anyway, it sounds like that we're pretty much in agreement, pretty close, that this movie is definitely bound to be a big Christmas cult classic, but maybe not necessarily a major Christmas classic itself.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, but otherwise, I think it's fair to say, though, that as you were saying, that since this is definitely an acquired taste, it's definitely for those that are much more interested in looking for the much more, I want to say, outside the box kind of Christmas movie.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
In fact, I guess I almost forgot to mention this too, but I'd even argue this film might even make a good double feature with that movie that came out last year, Fat Man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was a little bit of inspiration from that because, he, again, just this no-nonsense, quasi-magical Santa. He's kind of magical, but also kind of not. I mean, it's like the same kind of thing where they try to ground it so much, but at the same time, there's these mystical elements that are involved. And, Santa gets shot in the eye and you think he's dead, but nope, he's not. Christmas magic brings him back. And that's kind of the same thing here. Santa gets shot in the back and you think he's dying, and then nope, turns out Christmas magic brings him back, so I think you're right. I think that'd be a pretty good double feature.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe I'll plan something like that come next Christmas. I mean, we're only about 350 something days, so time's a ticking.
Yeah, we're almost there.
Yeah. Yeah, but otherwise, before we end things, got your show to plug. Where can everybody else find you?
Yeah, so I am the host of the Totally Rad Christmas podcast that you can find me, of course, anywhere you listen to podcasts, and on social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Totally Rad Christmas, Twitter at Rad Christmas, Mastodon at Totally Rad Christmas at mastodon.world, and I have a Facebook group, the Totally Rad Christmas Mall and Arcade, where anyone can post anything Christmas or 80s related, and yeah, so I'm around. And I do have a website, totallyradchristmas.com.
Clearly. But yeah, and again, for those listening, you're listening to Robert Nicholas from Behind the Bells. And even though, again, I have not done a deep dive in a little bit, one is coming pretty soon. So get ready for that. But otherwise, Gerry, I hope you yourself had some fun.
I did, yeah. Thanks for having me, man. This was a blast.
Of course. And to all my listeners, I hope you all enjoyed this, and hopefully you'll have some more of these later on. But otherwise, take care, and I will see you soon.
Thank you for joining us on this sleigh ride into the magical world of Christmas movies. Check us out for weekly rides into your favorite Christmas classics and their histories. Be sure to give us a positive review on iTunes if you like what you heard. And don't forget to follow us on social media on Facebook and Instagram for updates and special news. Consider subscribing on Patreon in order to help keep the show going and to gain access to some special gifts not available to the public. Merry Monday to all, and to all a good night. See you next week.
Cut. Okay, everybody, that's a wrap.